So on August 27th of this year, sinister monstrosities spawned by the unfathomable ignorance of humankind will be coming out through Redefining Darkness. Is it Productions or Records?
Records.
Records, okay. Tell me about this album. Tell me about the writing process and when you guys started working on it.
I pretty much immediately started writing for it as soon as we released the first album, and we started recording it last summer. We worked with Deado. He's an excellent engineer. He's worked with Caustic Wound and Cerebral Rot and a handful of other really good bands. And yeah, it probably could have been out last year, but the pandemic slowed everything down. But yeah, I'm glad it's finally going to be coming out soon. The lyrical themes on the new album have a good balance. Like the first album was mostly directly inspired by just Godzilla movies, but the second album has more variety. So like the A side takes influence from a handful of Japanese monster movies. And then the B side focuses more on like American monster movies or UK monster movies like The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms or Gorgo, stuff like that.
Would you say that there's a difference either in the approach or maybe the seriousness between American monsters, well, let's say Western monster movies and Japanese kaiju movies?
One big difference I've noticed between both are how they present the monsters themselves. Like in most Western monster movies, the monsters are pretty straightforward, very, they're just like animals, basically. Like the beast from 20,000 Fathoms and the giant ants from them are very basic. They act like animals. And then you watch Japanese monster movies, and in those films their monsters have a lot more personality. They're almost more relatable in a way. And so, and if you look closely, if you think about it, some of those monsters like Godzilla and Gamera, they have very human looking eyes. Even though they're reptiles, they don't have reptilian eyes. They have human looking eyes. I always felt like the monsters featured in Japanese monster films were more relatable in a way. They have more humanity in them.
Tell me a little bit about your writing process. You mentioned that you started working on this album just after the first album came out. Do you write most of the songs on your own?
Yeah, I have a very specific sound and vibe I want to go for. So the way it works is I write all the riffs, I write all the songs, and then me and Chris, the drummer, we get together and we jam and we work on drum parts. Sometimes I already have an idea of what I'd like him to do, but he'll come up with some really cool ideas that I wasn't even thinking of. And yeah, that's a fun process. And then once me and him pretty much have all that figured out, I teach Joey and Paul how to play the songs, and Joey does all the solos too. I'm more of a rhythm guitarist, so I let him handle the guitar solo stuff. He's the shredder.
You're from the Hetfield Millie School, right? Rhythm guitarist / vocalist?
Yeah, it's funny. Someone, a friend of mine the other day said that to me too.
How would you compare Sinister Monstrosities to the first album?
I think Sinister Monstrosities definitely has better production, and I think it sounds tighter, and I think the songwriting's definitely improved. There's a little like I think we've done a good job at keeping the sound that people loved us for on that first album, but kind of taking it to a new level. Like it's a little faster. The B side is still really, really fast like the rest of our stuff, but it's a different kind of fast. Like the A side's gonna be like, Vader, sadist sounding like the first album was, but then the B side has more of a like Massacre, Repulsion kind of vibe.
Tell me a little bit about recording with Deado. Had you worked with him before?
Yeah, we did the split with Power Beast was our first time ever working with him. I liked his work with all the other bands, and I heard great things about him, so I figured that would be a good opportunity to work with him and get an idea of what it's like to work with him. And it went great. He's a super great dude. He's very talented, laid back. Yeah, when we recorded the second album with him, we went 2 weeks in a row. We just recorded for 2 weeks in a row. And yeah, he's like the perfect dude to work with, honestly. Just very calm, very, very helpful. And his setup's really cool too. He has like a hybrid setup. So like we recorded reel to reel, but he has it hooked to his computer. So we're still able to go back and fix any mistakes or any parts that we think could sound better.
Dan Lowndes from Cruciamentum mastered the album. How did Lowndes get involved with this?
Dedo works with him a lot, actually. Dan's done mastering for a lot of his other releases. So their styles just work really well together. And I love Dan's work too. So I'm glad that we got to work with him in the end as well.
So you mentioned that this album could have been released last year. Did the pandemic affect the recording of the album?
Recording went really, really well, actually. It's just the pandemic slowed down other things, like processing or the artwork, things like that.
So this will be your second album for Redefining Darkness. Tell me a little bit about your relationship with them and how you guys initially got signed to them.
So when we completed the first album back in 2018, we just released it ourselves. We just, we put it online and made some CDRs out of it. And then I think about a month or two later after it came out, Thomas discovered it and he sent me a message telling me that he wanted to give it a proper CD release. And Thomas is a super cool dude, very nice. He's done a lot for us. I fucking love the guy. We've been working with him ever since then, and he's done a lot for us. And I'm glad we got to release this new album through him.